Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video we're here to talk about Alice in Borderland. Now, the thing with this is that ever since I first saw the trailer for this one, I was pretty excited given the headlining cast. And then it also seemed pretty interesting because I'm into like films and dramas that are, survival games type of thing. Like you sort of like, it gets you emotionally invested, but at the same time also mentally invested into the entire thing. So I absolutely like those types of narratives because it keeps you thinking, but at the same time you also get something out of the narrative. I kind of already am expecting some bigger themes that are going to play into it, so that's also something that I'm pretty excited about when I first heard about it. And another thing is that it's a Netflix event type of thing where they had a world premiere and stuff like that. And the thing with this is that we rarely get this for J-dramas or J-movies in general, as compared to say other Asian dramas or Asian films or anything like that. So having this is a big deal for J-entertainment fans, at least in my opinion. And I don't know, like there's just something about it that's particularly interesting to me, especially as someone who hasn't really seen the original source material. I know that other people are anticipating it mainly because they're already fans of the original work. For me, it's really a fresh lens perspective because I'm not sure if I've talked about this in other videos before, but even if I'm really into anime or like J-movies, J-dramas, anything like that, manga is something that I rarely dip my toes into just for various reasons. I'm just, if I know that it's something that's promising and I'll probably get to see it, visually moving and anything like that with scoring, coloring, anything. I mean, I'm into more of those things, and if ever I'm going to read something, I prefer books or light novels over manga, especially if it requires a lot more of like reading into nuances in terms of actions. I don't know, that's just my preference. Please don't come for me, but that's mainly one of the reasons why I didn't really dive right into, Alice in Borderland as a source material per se. But anyways, so that's one disclaimer out of the way. Another disclaimer that I'm putting out there is I know that a lot of people have very strong opinions about Yamazaki Kento, whether it be like they love him so much enough to defend him to the ends of the earth, or they just hate his gut and just, I don't know, just have a lot of opinions about him generally. Now, I've talked about this in my previous videos where I've talked about some of his projects before. I'm neither of those things. Like as with any other actors or people, like, so for me, as with any other actors that I've talked about here on my channel with other projects or whatever, it really depends on the projects that they push out that I judge them in. So it's really more of like a case-by-case basis rather than just generalizing something because I'm not a huge fan of an actor. I am a huge fan of an actor. Like, I've trashed reviews for some of the projects of even actors that I prefer here on my channel very openly just because I didn't like the narrative of the movie. So same feelings with Yamazaki Kento. I have some of his works that I absolutely enjoyed. Like, for example, Todomi no Case, Good Doctor, the Japanese version. I absolutely love that. I cried in every single one of the episodes. I think I've talked about it here on my channel before. And Gekijo, which is his recent project with Matsuoka Mayu. That movie I absolutely loved. I feel like it's one of my favorite movies this year. So yeah, just putting it out there as well. That's basically my quote-unquote relationship with Yamazaki Kento and his projects. So again, I've seen this series with that perspective in mind and not really have this like other biases towards him or anything like that. So yeah. Now with that said, so there are going to be spoilers, definitely. I'll try to keep this to a minimum at least. Like if you're someone who's just curious about it, but you don't mind spoilers much, but you're curious whether or not you should see it. So I'll try to keep it into a minimum, but I will be talking about a lot of like the themes that went into the series and everything. So there might be details that are spilled here and there. So yeah. Now, if you're into that, then please keep on watching. If you don't want to be spoiled, then I suggest you click off. But with that said, let's just get to it. There's one thing that I did a research on prior to seeing this. It's just the dynamic of like the main characters first. Now, from what I've seen, one major difference that they've changed, at least I think based from my research, is that the original characters are actually high school students, but as compared to this one, they're really more of like adults navigating the real world type of thing. Episode 1, we get introduced to Arisu, Karube, and Chota, 3 high school friends who are now in the adult stage of their lives. And if we put it bluntly, they're sort of like losers in society, if you will. Like Arisu, he dropped out of college and is just very much fixated into playing video games. There's Karube, who just got fired when he gets introduced to us in the first episode because he was getting handsy with the girlfriend of his boss. And then there's Chota, who is your usual like office guy, but it seems like, you know, he was giving most of his money to his mother for certain reasons that she will be revealed later on into the narrative. So basically that's what we get from them, and there's this whole entire vibe of just escapism. And then suddenly, you know, because things got messy, they got a little bit rowdy. They were supposed to be in trouble with the police, so they ran, hid in a public toilet cubicle. And then there's like a momentary blackout. And then after that, when they got out, the busy streets of Shibuya was emptied out. So it wasn't even a mere, I don't know, 5 minutes or anything like that. But then the hustling and bustling city that they were just walking through previously is completely blanked out. So they went and did their own investigation and found out basically entire Tokyo lost its population, and when they reconvened, you know, they suddenly got introduced into, you know, this game, which is the start of the entire plot of the narrative. Now, in the first game, they got introduced to like other characters. One of them that became quote unquote a bit significant into, you know, at least the first couple of episodes of the series is Shibuki. And basically in the game, Chota got himself injured, and so that's why in the following episodes, it's only Arisu and Karube that had to try out other games. So basically, if you become a player, you're given visas. If you survive the first game, rather, you're given visas, which is supposed to be like your life in the game. And to extend it, you have to keep on playing more games. Otherwise, if you let it expire, then you will be killed, terminated, that kind of thing. So yeah, so you have to keep on playing to keep extending it. It's either you survive, keep playing, blah, blah. You get the idea. Introduced into like other characters into the narrative. Like obviously there's Usagi, which is played by Tao. There's also Niragi, played by Sakura Dori, who absolutely nails this part yet again. Like I feel like Dori nails asshole roles for some reason. He's just so good in this. There's Tsuchiya, which is played by Murakami Nijiro. There's just a lot of them in this particular series, okay? So it's kind of like, you know, pinpointing like actors that you've seen in various projects and anything like that, and just, you know, pointing, oh, him, her. So, and also a couple of like fresh faces as well. So definitely that's one treat in itself. But moving back to the narrative, so basically you get the cards that are apparently presented in the narrative, you know, they correspond, like each suit corresponds to certain types of challenges, and the higher the number in the card, the higher the difficulty of the game. So basically, like for example, if it's a spade, so it's a physical kind of game. If it's a club, it's really more of, I don't know, something that you have to work with someone else for it to work out, like a coordination type of game. if it's a diamond, so it's more of like a mental game where you have to use your wits to survive it. And the trickiest one would be the hearts, which is usually has something to do where you compromise, your own values, and it will really like break you. So if you make relationships within the game, whether it be friendly, romantic, or anything like that, expect that to go into a wrong turn, basically. Episode 3 was very, very emotionally taxing. Again, as I mentioned, I'll try to keep the details into a minimum, but I absolutely like how that scene played out. To me, the thing is, the entire theme of this series, at least from what I picked up from it, is reevaluating, the life that you had prior, and having this existential dilemma as to whether or not you really deserve to live as compared to other people. And again, like, I feel like that applies so much in the dynamic that we have in real life, where sometimes we feel like, other people deserve certain things more than us, or vice versa. But in the end, life is really very similar to how a game is. Like, you never really know what kind of circumstances can play to your advantage or disadvantage. And I think that's what I like about this one, is because we also get introduced to our other characters. Like, for example, for Recibos's character, he wanted to be this player in the game rather than in real life, because in real life he couldn't find the actual purpose for himself there, and he found his purpose in the game. So it's a very existential narrative laced into this very exciting setup. And I don't know, like, I feel like viewers hopefully grasp that idea, especially with the character of Arisu, who usually, given how he knows how he spent his life prior to entering Borderland, it raises a lot of questions as to, him asking himself whether he deserves it. But even if his mind and emotion makes him feel like he doesn't, his body is trying to tell him that, you have to survive. It's that instinct that you have within yourself to keep on surviving. So these kinds of like details and dynamics in the plot, I think, made it interesting for me. If you're that type of viewer as well, who really likes these types of details into the narrative, you would absolutely like enjoy reading into the metaphors that were poured into it. Another thing that I like about this is that how one of the things that I absolutely like in terms of history is the study about the Stanford Prison Experiment. If you don't know that one, its main dynamic is basically, if what I learned is that humans, when they're given absolute authority over someone else's lives, it would have like no repercussions whatsoever as to what they do with that kind of authority. A certain instinct in them pops up, no matter how good they are, where they tend to really want to take over someone's lives. Like, it would push out the worst in them, in trying to control someone else's, if social norms aren't a thing. So it's been banned. Like, it was considered unethical. It happened in real life, that experiment, so look it up. But the reason why I think I like this particular theme in this series is because they sort of like explored that as well. Like, these are people who had lives before Borderland, but at the same time, because all social structures got sort of like diminished given the circumstances, they built their own hierarchies and at the same time like rules to follow. And it doesn't necessarily have to be rules that were followed prior to the original structure of society, but rather this new thing, which is very glaring with the dynamic of Agony and Boshia. Now, with all of these things said, now let's get right into the things that I feel like could have been improved on, or things that I didn't exactly enjoy much about the series. As soon as the beach thing happened, I feel like things got a little stale in my opinion. Like, it's still enjoyable in a way, but it became predictable at that point. The thing with this is that usually with survival games and challenges and anything like that, you have to like either keep on like punching on things to keep the momentum going, or just give me something there. I don't know. I think that's just it for me. And I feel like during these scenes, with Chishiya's character, and the twist with Boshiya and Agony, to me, it just felt, I don't know, like, to me, it felt very predictable. Like, when I found out about, you know, certain twists here and there, it wasn't really surprising to me anymore. And probably because, I don't know, like, if you're someone who's a viewer who loves to pick up on like Chekhov's gun details, I feel like you would have picked up some pieces here and there already to not surprise you as to what's gonna happen in the latter parts of the series. What's interesting to me is the whole dynamic of the cards. Like, they figured out, you know, how it works and anything like that. So that's kind of cool. But other than that, I mean, another thing that I feel like is an issue for me while I was watching it is, in the first parts, you know, there are some quote-unquote sexual scenes that I feel like are kind of necessary into the plot. Like, for example, when Niragi was harassing Usagi, it shows that kind of like power play that was necessary to show that, you know, this person is really maximizing the sort of like authority that he has over someone else's life. You know, he was trying to, it was an exposition, but at the same time, you know, there's really like a struggle in terms of the dynamic there that was really, I don't know, like how to explain, diabolical to watch. But then, like, for the other scenes, like, for example, the thing with Chota and Shibuki, I didn't really get much from it, like, especially with Chota and his backstory with his mom in contrast with religion. Like, I sort of like get what they're trying to portray there. It's just that it felt too, I'm not sure if it's because of the pacing or anything like that, but they didn't really explore it to the point that I would care enough about it. That scene between him and Shibuki as well, like, what was that supposed to stand for? Is that so it could show us that they have like that they shared a moment, and therefore the events of episode 3 would have more impact? Because for me as a viewer, that didn't really do much. So in these types of things, like these types of details that sort of like, you know, trying to fill in the gaps but then failing, these types of things, like, I feel like those things could have been omitted out, and they could have made use of the time a lot better, sort of like, I don't know, building up the backstory of the characters so that episode 3, as emotionally taxing as it already is, they could have really like packed on other details in that would really make you, you know, like care more for these characters and care more for their relationship or anything like that. As compared to that insertion, I'm not sure if that's in the original source material and has to be included for some reason, but it just felt a bit useless for me. As for the scenes in the beach, you know, there's nothing really new to the table into that. If you've seen other quote-unquote survival games, like Liar Game, Battle Royale, what else? Tomodachi Game, As the Gods Will. If you've seen those types of films, then you would know that, you know, some sort of like organization or power dynamic, there is something that's going to happen there that's going to tip the scale for some reason. So yeah, but if you're a new viewer, I guess it will work. It's just that for me, after episodes 3 and 4, the story sort of like mellowed down. I mean, it's still enjoyable, it's still nice to watch. It's just that there's just something there that I was looking for, you know. But overall, so is it worth the watch? Definitely. Whether or not you're into J-dramas or J-series, J-movies, anything like that, I feel like this is an enjoyable watch and something that's really worth spending your time on, especially for the weekends or holidays, since there are a lot of breaks, anything. Another thing to highlight about this is that Sato Shinsuke is the director for this one. So he directed Kingdom, Bleach, Gantz, Inuyashiki. So, and he's also a video game developer for those who don't know. So definitely the effects here, as well as cinematography, is something that I absolutely love. Like the use of shadows and light in some of these scenes, color grading, everything, and even like framing of some of the scenes. Like it's something that, well, I feel like it's because I'm familiar with his other movies, and that's why, you know, that became glaringly clear. But this is his genre, and therefore on that aspect it's really good. It's just that, you know, as I mentioned before, it's nothing really offering you to the table, but quite enjoyable nonetheless. And given the ending of this particular series, so hopefully, and I think the reception is good, so hopefully a season 2 is bound to happen, because obviously the way they ended it, it has to happen. And I don't know, overall, like, I did enjoy it. I did have some things that I liked so much and I didn't like so much, as I mentioned in the video, but anyways, overall, I feel like, you know, again, something that is worth your time, especially if you're planning to like see it in the weekend or anything like that. So yeah. Now, tell me down in the comments below, what are your thoughts on this? Like, have you seen it or are planning to see it? What's your favorite scene in it? And what are the things that you're looking forward to in case there's going to be a second season? Let's talk it out down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one.